Yo, what's up, guys? It's Kess. Due to popular demand, we are doing more commentaries. You guys have seemed to like them and found them beneficial, so keep doing them. This one today is going to be City of Threads. I'm going to use our untimed 18 that we did today, just because, you know, it's the most recent run, most recent strats, most recent route, most recent defensive usage. And the big focus of this video is going to be like how to live this key, with some kind of like cool tech here and there as well. Yeah, the biggest focus will be living, defensive usage, stuff like that. And then last boss especially, I want to kind of give you a defensive rotation that will work for you in no matter what group environment you're in, whether that's pugs or a pre-made group as well. And it worked for me living 18, so should work for you guys in pretty much any key level. So let's jump right into it. I might not go over every single poll as much. We might fast forward a bit, but because I want to get more into the defensive stuff on the bosses and whatnot. These guys here, if you have engineering 25, you know, you talk to them, you guys know this by now, you get a nice damage buff. This first pull here, you want to set your focus to one of the kicks, and then as well as we have these venom blades who put a poison on the tank, so make sure you're expunging the tank, clearing that poison off him. Pretty easy pull. But then we also have these swarm guards in the key, these big beetles. They do the ravenous swarm dot, which does a lot of damage. So one thing with these is, like, again, I talk about this a lot, just get into a defensive rotation that works for you, right? That you're comfortable with. So I usually like, you know, we're in PI and stuff on the first one, so I usually just like renewing blaze the first one, and then, excuse me, the second one all wall, you know, or the second one all rescue, and then third one all wall, right? Just make sure you're pressing something for every swarm. This pull here, same sort of thing, but I want to pause for one quick sec. One big mistake you guys make on this pull in your pug keys is the Herald has a kick, right? And what a lot of you do is you see a kick, therefore you kill the kick mob. Again, set your focus kick, and let's cleave off the important mob here, the dangerous mob, which is the Royal Swarm Guard, right? That's the guy that puts the dot out. So, you know, make sure you're kicking, but let's try and put all of our prio damage into the Swarm Guard so we can get rid of him and prevent like additional swarms from going out, right? Because they do a lot of damage. Another thing on this pull, you can kind of tell here by my positioning right now, is so the Shadow of Doubt goes out. That's the dispel mechanic on the boss with the orbs. You want to try and just be far back, like be out of melee, right? So I Breath of Eons and I immediately hover back out, and I start doing my rotation from like as range as I can be, right? You don't want another person in melee crowding the space, hiding under the beetle shell, and then like you get dispelled in melee because you just landed from your eons, and then it's hard for them to dodge, right? So just be aware of that. But again, this pull is pretty simple. Again, try and have a button for every single swarm, you know, rescue, wall, renew, whatever it may be. And pretty simple. Now this boss here, when he pulls you in, he does a lot of damage. Don't worry too much about that. It doesn't one-shot you even on 18. But a few things with this fight. People always ask me why I have Yoda on focus on this boss. Because to me, the best use of rescue on this fight is potentially helping my tank with the tank buster. The tank buster is very difficult on this boss, and it trucks, right? There aren't really other rescue opportunities unless you want to use it for the group AoE, but I don't recommend that, and I think the tank rescue is better because the group AoE is like so easy to live. It does not do much damage at all, honestly. And then you don't really want to pre-rescue the dispel debuff because then you're like crowding space and having to make quick movements in a very tight space after the rescue, right? few things with the tank rescue though. If you're in Discord with him, make sure you are communicating with him about it. If you're not in Discord and you are rescuing your like no comms pug tank, please do not turn him away from the boss. Do not let him get meleeed in the back because of it. And only do it if you know what you're doing with it, right? Just be careful, because rescuing a tank can be very risky. It can get ugly. I'll fast forward a bit here. So how I like to play this boss is, again, melee are kind of meta right now, so let them have their space in melee, right? Don't be intrusive to their space. Don't be invasive. Give them room. So what I like to do is, you know, look at their positioning, and then I'm going to adjust my movement because I can cast and move with hover, right? So try and give them space, play the edges of the circle, right? But don't leave the circle because then you get pulled back in, and that's not good. You'll take a lot of damage, right? So give them space, you know, be nice to them. The second AoE of the fight, which is right here, this is one that if I was in a pug group, I would probably Zephyr that one. You can Zephyr the first one if you want. However, the first one is probably the easiest because you're either A, lusting it, or B, your group has like full cooldowns on pull, and that's usually when, you know, everyone's strongest. You know, PI's out, AG might be out too, stuff like that, right? So you could Zephyr the first or second one, and then you'll probably get a second use in the fight, depending on key level. But one thing we're scared of on this boss is if the Dispel debuff is on me and I'm not getting dispelled, A, because the healer in the pug group doesn't dispel at all, which is very scary. They should definitely dispel one. Or B, I'm the one holding it, right? He dispels someone else and I'm holding the debuff. You absolutely defensive. That is where your defensives go in this fight. That is where you're most scared. Make sure you're defensiving if you're holding the orb. It is very important because it does a lot of damage. The group AoE, again, if you're not rescuing the tank, you could put a rescue there. It's very easy to live the group AoE. Honestly, it's a very, very small HPS check. Your healer can probably cover it by themselves. But if you want to put something small there, you could Renewing Blaze or Rescue. But like, you see my health here? Like, it's just getting owned by holding the debuff, right? It does a lot of damage. So that's where you're most scared on this boss. But yeah, so we're just gonna fast forward to where the queen area starts, and there's actually like a lot of valuable information I can pass on in here. I think this first pull here, honestly, all your pugs are probably doing this by now, right? So you guys are familiar with this. We have the perfume toss person and we have Eye of the Queen, right? If you have a disc priest in the group, there's always our first rule, right? Which is disc priest in the group, we always play Spatial Paradox, right? We never play Time Spiral. Now, because we have Paradox, this first overlap is where you're going to press it, right? So it's going to be Gossamer Barrage plus Void Rush at the same time. This is when you spatial your disc priest so he can top you up from the difficult debuff and dodge the puddles at the same time, right? Because casting and moving on a disc priest is just not really a thing. So this is where we want to use our spatial here. Now, how do you live the Void Rush? Well, again, it's sort of like any other trash pack in the game that has like recurring debuffs, right? Just find and pick a defensive rotation for yourself that works, right? I rescue Greg into the AMZ here. You know, next one could be Wall. Next one could be a Renewing Blaze, plus maybe I dump a Verdant Embrace into myself, right? There's so many options. Just make sure you press something for every single one. And if you have nothing, don't be scared to ask, or don't be scared to health pot, right? But always try and press something for every Void Rush because it hurts a lot. Now, I'm gonna fast forward a bit here as well. So when we go left after the first one, I always go behind the house. Oh, I'll go a little bit further here. So I always go behind the house. And the reason why I do this, it doesn't matter too much, but I do this. I think it's good. If the spawn is right here, you will automatically know, right? You can automatically communicate to your team, okay, it's the close one. Then, if it's not the close one of two things will happen, right? If you see the left side lies to you, right? So if I see the ghost telling me to go behind the house, I immediately know in my brain that it's inside the house because it's lying to me over here, right? Unless it's the close one, right? It's lying to me. So if it says go behind the house, it's inside the house. If these images were going this way towards the house, then I would know immediately that it's the one behind the house, right? So a nice little tell that you can do to, you know, save, you know, marginal time in the key, I guess, right? But good to know. And here is a nice little piece of information. So the hollow residents, if you see on the right side of the screen, they are these yellow mobs, right? And the highlighted one, the highlighted yellow mob, when he's hit, he turns into one of the queens or the spies, right? One thing you can do to speed up your runs is all effective damage that goes into the yellow mob, and the yellow mobs only have 53 million health, right? So they have lower HP compared to the real mob. So all effective damage you put into the yellow mob translates percentage-wise into the queen that spawns, but it's capped at 10%. So you could get the mob to 90% before anyone even hits it. As the Augmentation, you can't really do too much about this unless you have Mad Queen's Mandate Trinket. So that would be like a good option here. But how we do it with our group is Yoda, the prop pound and 4-piece, they like build stacks. And basically he goes into the pole and he uses his, I think it's his Consecrate or whatever procs his 4-piece on the mob, and it just like spawns with lower HP, right? So it's awesome to do. Usually what I do too, I don't think I do it on this one here, but usually what I do then is, because I know Yoda is going to be the first person to hit it, is I prescience him. See, the mob spawned at 90% health, right? So that's the max amount you could do is 10%, and we got it there. Now again, each of these Void Rush pulls kind of gets a little bit harder. They start mixing in extra mobs. So one thing we need to be aware of now is the pursuers. You don't want a knife throw to go out during a Void Rush, right? So Void Rush debuff is out now. Knife throw is going, right? Yoda sacked it. It was on Zor, right? So that's a good option. Another good option is using a stop, tail swipe, knock, right? Stuff like that. So pay attention to the knife throw overlap with the Void Rush and help reduce incoming damage there. That is important to do. And then from here, you know, this side, obviously you just follow the ghost, easy, right? I pre-prescience Yoda because he's trying to get HP off the mob. He got 4% there, right? And then again, this one has a kick in, so we set our focus kick. And then from there, we're just hitting the Eye of the Queen and focused on living, right? Doing a defensive rotation, making sure we're pressing something on every single Void Rush. This one's pretty easy. Nothing crazy here. We'll fast forward through this. And we're heading on over to the other side. Again, there's a couple visual tells on this side that you can get used to. So I see this mob going up the stairs. I immediately know it's the back, or it's in the house, right? So if the mob's going up the stairs, you can do this little shortcut here and you automatically know it's in the house. I think I get stuck here. Yeah. Oops. Again, pre-prescience Yoda because he's trying to do the most damage he can on pull. He gets 10% off, right? This pull here, I always oppressive roar stun, just to kind of try and delay any knife throws or anything like that going out on pull, because the mob Void Rushes pretty much immediately. So again, just trying to mitigate additional damage in the pull. But nothing too special here. This one just has knife throws and a kick, right? So just try and watch the overlaps, try and use CC, try and use stops. Game your upheaval for stopping a knife throw, Void Rush overlap, stuff like that, right? One thing you should do is the Augmentation on the last queen is once you see it's dead and there's not going to be another debuff, is I run outside and I go start the RP. Now, starting the RP is you just want to get in range of this guy. And then when you see the chat box, the RP has begun. Start spawning the boss. Now, this boss here is quite difficult. This boss hurts a lot. So the knife throw is cauterizable. One good thing to do with the cauterize, if it goes on you, you can press it instantly. However, I would probably try and aim to use it during, like, just before a damage event, right? So if a fresh knife throw goes out and we're about to get the icicles, which is like the big hit, you could cauterize that person so that A, they don't have a bleed, and B, you're healing them up a bit so they're more healthy going into the big hit. Just make sure you're pressing it on this boss as much as you can. Yeah, these purple circles on the ground, not the big one, obviously, that is very dangerous. The small purple circles on the ground, they don't do any damage to you. They are fake. These are indicators of where the frontals, those like big purple frontals, will be, right? So I'll show you one thing later in the fight, but that's all these do. You can stand on them, they don't do anything. The icicle hit that just happened there, just obsidian scale, and you should live every time. Pretty easy. Nothing too crazy there. You can also Zephyr that. You can also Zephyr. I think a better use of Zephyr is this tank soak mechanic, specifically the second one. So what I do here is, let's break this down. So the first icicle, I obsidian scale, right? The first rhyme dagger, which is the tank soak, I rescue. And then the second rhyme dagger, I'm probably about to Zephyr here. Right, so it's coming up here. So it's tank soak back to back, right? Okay, so Zephyr goes out. And we're moving away. You can kind of just memorize that rotation in your head and repeat it throughout the fight, right? Very good to do. The synergetic steps, so you see how we always bait them into the wall. They if they're close to the wall, excuse me, big yawn there. If they're close to the wall, they don't move. They like try to charge in the wall, but they can't do the full duration of their line because it gets cut off into the wall, so they just stand still. So that's one thing you guys should do, or tell your push groups to start doing. It'll help optimize melee uptime and stuff like that, and honestly range uptime too, because they can charge away and out of your range as Evoker, and it's very annoying. So again, icicles coming out here, just obsidian scales. You'll live it. It's nothing too crazy. That mechanic's very easy to live. Now, you see these purple puddles that we talked about? So notice how there's one way over here off to the left side of the screen. So what I calm in my group is there's 3 in melee here, but then this one is like kind of out of people's field of view. This one's tricky. And a lot of times the one that spawns way over here, if it's aiming towards us, it's gonna like no scope people cross map. It's gonna hit you unexpectedly. You're not gonna think you're in it, right? So this one I always like calm to my group. I say, okay guys, there's one frontal far left side of the map, and then when it spawns and the frontals happen, I'd be like, we're safe or we're not safe, right? Not safe meaning it's pointing towards us, and safe meaning it's pointing away and we don't need to worry about it. But that's one thing I try to be aware of as the Aug in the group here. I've seen way too many people die to it, and it's always like, wait, what the heck? What happened? So again, rescuing the first rhyme dagger here. And then the second one in the cycle, right? Because I said rescue into Zephyr. The second one, you don't have Zephyr. So You do want to press something here. I slam the Renewing Blaze and then we walk into an AMZ, but try and, like, in a pug, you're probably not going to have the AMZ planned, right? So just try and press something there. So that's the 4th Rhyme Dagger of the fight. But you can rescue the first one every time, and I think you should. That's very, very good. I generally rescue my Disc Priest. He is the squishiest in this case. And then again, the fight's just pretty much rinse repeat. So right now, this is what I was talking about, right? I was calming to my team that over here, right, there's a frontal. So you see it comes out, and I would have told them that we are safe. Don't need to worry about it. But try and be aware of that, right? Because if that guy was turning this way, we would have to move. Like, he would 100% kill us. These cones are way bigger than they look. It's the same thing. We're safe. Right? And it's these purple circles on the ground. That's what's telling us where they are. It's also telling you where these puddles will be. But again, Icicle goes out, Obsidian Scale, and I Zephyr that one, right? Again, let's break this down. First Icicle, Obsidian Scale. First Rhyme Dagger of every set is Rescue. Second Rhyme Dagger on the first set of Rhyme Daggers is Zephyr. Then the cycle continues and we're back to Icicles, which again is just Obsidian Scales, paying attention for cauterizes as well. Live that Icicle. We go back into Rhyme Dagger. Now this is Rhyme Dagger set 2, let's call it. First one, we press Rescue. The second one this time, there's no Zephyr up. So you want to press something. You could Obsidian Scales, you could, you know, call for a group external. So we used AMZ and I used Renewing Blaze. So it's AMZ Renewing Blaze. Then we go into the Icicles again, which is an Obsidian Scale charge. And then also the third Icicle of the fight, your Zephyr is back up. So you can Zephyr that one for your group. So let's say in a pug environment, right? If you, on Rhyme Dagger set 2, on the second dagger, when Zephyr's not up, and I said you need to press something, you could press the Obsidian Scale charge there, and then the next Icicle, you could just Zephyr, like Zephyr Hover, right? So you'll kind of have buttons always, right? That rotation will work for you, and you can experiment with it, you can add to it, you can take stuff away, whatever you need to live your keys, but that is what worked for me in a plus 18, and honestly, it was very comfortable. It's a very comfortable fight. Pretty straightforward. Hopefully that helps you guys. I think it's very good. But again, nice thing about Aug is find a defensive rotation that works for you, that you're comfortable with, and that is going to be consistent and reliable. These pulls up here, these are mostly just like tank threatening. The Pursuers knife throw you. It doesn't do too much damage. You're only worried if you pull like 3 of them and you get like triple targeted or you like get picked on a lot. Again, that's kind of just where the targeted spells weak aura comes in, and you're just aware of what damage is coming your way. The Webmancers, obviously set your focus kick to them. Pay attention to the blasts. The blasts don't do too much damage. The heal is really bad. Make sure you stop the heal for sure. Kick the blasts, obviously, still, because it's, you know, damage you don't need to be taking, but definitely don't let the Mending Webs full channel. There's nothing too crazy I want to go over with these. I don't really want to get into too much like rotational stuff in this key. I just want to get into the nitty gritty of, you know, how do you live City of Threads. So I'm mostly going to be like skipping these packs, because I don't want to focus too much on them. This beetle can be tough, especially with the poison cleansing totem change. So if you do the double caster pack in this mob, one thing I like to do is once it's all grouped up and I'm ready to do my Eons go, I'll Oppressive Roar, right? Oppressive Roar and then stun, and then gives us a little bit more time and leniency with the getting the kicks off. Very important you have your focus kick here and you're not hitting the casters. You want to be hitting the venom shell, right? So that's why we have our focus kick. Still kick the mob, but hit the important mob. That is very, very important. Again, you have expunge. Even if poison cleansing totem, apologies, is being dropped, you want to expunge yourself immediately, because depending on when the totem ticks, it might not clear you instantly and you might take a couple ticks of damage from the venom shell poison, and it hurts. It does so much damage. So immediately when it goes out, expunge yourself. You can also cauterize it off someone else. So be looking out for that as well. So usually how we play this, we have a shaman, so he poison cleanses the first one. Actually, so here's a good example. Greg took 3 ticks before the poison thing cleansed him, and it almost killed him, right? So very scary. Back to how we play this. We poison cleanse the first one, he totemic recalls it, we poison cleanses the second one, and then the third one we get is I dispel myself, I cauterize someone, Yoda sacks someone so it pre-immunes it, and then, you know, Nade can AMS, Zor can dwarf, right? So if you're in a pre-made group, you guys can kind of plan around that as well. If you're in a pug group, just make sure you're expunging and cauterizing on cooldown, honestly. Prevent them from going out. Just gonna fast forward a bit to these mobs. Again, set your focus kick. Don't let the blast go off. I like to pull these droplets, even in my pug groups for the tank. They're pretty harmless mobs. And they take a while to show up, but they need to die to spawn the boss. So I like to grab them once we engage this first pull here. And then they show up and they just get cleaved down for free, and then the boss spawns, right? The test subject, he does this dark barrage. Pretty good time to use spatial on your healer, right? Because there's like little jumpy mobs in here, the assistants. They do a decent amount of damage to the group. And you want your healer to be able to heal and move on the go there. So I like the spatial there. The dark barrage, you can just like hover renewing blaze or commit an obsidian scales to it and you should be fine. You can also Zephyr your group on it. I don't Zephyr here because we have planned Zephyr on the boss fight pretty early. So yeah, this boss is hard, right? This boss is hard. This boss is significantly harder in pug groups, obviously, because there's less planning, right? So we'll fast forward ahead. So on 18, I'm actually just going to pull this website up right now, and I will show you guys. I can link this in the description. This website, Not Even Close by Ortimus, is your lifesaver in Mythic Plus. Okay. So you go to this website, there's an add-on you can get to import all your numbers, or you can do it manually, right? You just put in your stamina, your verse, avoidance, armor, and these are all unbuffed values, keep in mind. And then pick the key level, pick the key, right? So let's go to City of Threads. I was in an 18. Everything kills me. Literally everything kills me. So I have checked off Hardened Scales, Inherent Resistance, and I need to check off Nimble Flyer. This is the 10% AoE hero talent from Scale Commander. I play Black Attunement in these keys. You guys might not be playing it because you probably don't need it until like 18s, honestly. But anyways, this website, Lifesaver. This is how you know how to live bosses. So when I look at the knockback that this boss does, with hover, I live with 5% health. Without hover, I die. I need to hover every single knockback on this boss, and you guys should practice this too, because it's just free DR, less healing required to get you topped, right? So, very good website, Lifesaver. This is literally how you push high keys. The worst thing you can do is enter a key and be like, oh, I died to that. I didn't know I would die to that. That was surprising to me, right? Get familiar with this website. Use it. Super easy, super good. Shout out Ortimus. Honestly, this is a lifesaver. Anyways, so I see the darkness thing coming out. I have to pre-hover, right? I have to pre-hover or I die. See how it literally like almost kills me. Then what I like to do in our group setting, and again, this is going to be different than a pug, I only soak one orb every single time. And I always soak one of these corner ones that spawn in these little slots in the wall. I only do one. I don't want to soak too many because it's pretty risky on Evoker. This boss is quite hard for you, especially as the key levels go up, right? Because your hovers are like, you know, going on all the darknesses, and your defensives are planned for the big Dark Pulse group AoE as well. Plus, there's just like better people to soak, right? Like on this set here, you'll notice Nate activates his AMS, and he's going to soak all of these so that nobody has to take them, right? See, soak, 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 soak. Nate gets like all of them. Now the Dark Pulse, what you're going to do is you're always going to Obsidian, Scale, Renewing Blaze, and Rescue. You are going to layer the heck out of this, right? Because we can live every stomp with just hover. And we're only soaking one orb at a time, so we don't need defensives there. They all go on the pulse. Scales, Renewing Blaze, and Rescue. Every single time. If you don't see a group DR go out in your pug groups, right? No barrier, no AMZ. Slam a Zephyr on the Dark Pulse as well. Very, very good. Evoker is very tanky on this fight if you have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you are probably dead, right? Again, pretty comfy. Pretty comfy. The unfortunate part about hovering all the knockbacks is like you can't just like freely hover on the boss to like move and do damage. And you have to pay attention to your hovers, like making sure you have one for every single set, right? But yeah. Pretty straightforward boss if you just follow that simple guidance there. I put my Zephyr on the second Dark Pulse. So the first one was Scales, Renew, Rescue, and Greg's Barrier. The second one here is Scale, Renew, Rescue, Zephyr, AMZ, right? Like, you see how we're just throwing like everything into it because you don't need anything else for the other stuff on the fight, because soaks are covered by Penalty's Bubble, Spell Ward, and AMZ, and then, you know, everyone's kind of soaking like one or two, right? And then we're hovering the darkness, so you're only really worried about the Dark Pulse. That's the scariest part of the fight. So you're just putting many layers up to live that. We'll fast forward through this. You guys get the point. It's just a repetitive cycle. Honestly, that's most of these fights. They're just like scripted. Once you know how to live, it's like scripted living. And then it's just an endless cycle, you know? And as the keys goes up, it gets harder, but you're still pressing the same buttons pretty much. The bosses just live longer. So the cycle might go longer or start to get weird. You'll notice how the last boss gets weird for me. Because like, as the keys goes up, you have difficult trash packs before the boss fight. So the boss fight script might be a bit different because you had to press or maybe overpress or something on a previous pull, and then timers start to get weird, right? But when things work out, the script is very nice, yeah. Test subject, again, nothing crazy here. One thing you should do though is if your group pulls this after the boss, after third boss, while they enter combat with it, I always run ahead and start the RP, right? You want to start the RP, you want to get the mini bosses spawning. You know the RP is started when the boss does the text line. That's when you're free and can come back and help them fight. Sorry, the Twitch VOD was buffering a bit there. It's not you guys lagging. This mob here, again, if we check the Not Even Close website, this mob kills me every single time if I don't press a defensive. So I rescue the first one there, right? Get the shortest thing on cooldown immediately. And then So you can like rescue the first one always, and then if you have eons on pole, you might have a chrono ward active for the second one. I didn't hear, so I obsidian scales this one. But again, just always be pressing something and pay attention to chrono warden too. So when Breath of Eons pops, you get the chrono ward, right? The shield. And again, that's where we like the calculator. You can like see if the absorb is enough to let you live, and if it is and you recognize you have it, then you know you don't have to press a button. I cheated there because I'm a bozo, and I thought the value I had was enough, but I misremembered the calculator, and I actually cheated by like, it was by like 60k or something like that. So that was my mistake, right? But yeah, just try and press something for every Umbral Weave. Hover does not work on that mob. It is the Umbral Weave is a single target spell, and that's same with the boss fight. Zephyr and Hover do not work on the Weave, only on the slam that this guy does. So again, this guy's slam, with what I just said, is you can hover everyone for an additional layer of defensiveness. Try and rescue for it as well. And then for the swarm, you want to like renewing blaze and obsidian scales, right? You can Zephyr the slam. There's one really bad overlap where you get swarm immediately into slam, and that is like the scariest one. That is where you're pressing a defensive of your own plus your Zephyr, right? For you and for everyone else, because that is the scariest one. It's right here actually. And yeah, like I Zephyr and we AMZ, and look, our whole group almost dies. That is the scariest overlap, so pay attention to that. That one owns. But yeah, I died to this guy. Things kind of got out of whack here. I should have rescued there. I didn't want to rescue because rescue is the first thing, or I guess second thing, in my defensive rotation on the boss, but I should have just pressed it instead of thinking ahead. And that would have prevented my death there, and then having to kill these beetles. Now, we still had 5 minutes for this boss. We were actually owning this key. Sadly, it ended in a heartbreaker, but now this boss is probably like the hardest boss in the game, and I'm going to give you the secret hack on how to live. It's not secret, and it's not really a hack, it's just a defensive rotation, but... So, it's always going to be splice, right? A splice will happen, and we're dodging our feet for these orbs, and then there's always going to be a big hit, and the big hit can either always be the slam or the umbral weave, right? So what I do, the very first splice, and it is very important if you are copying this rotation that you press the buttons when you're supposed to. If you fall behind or are late, these cycles are so like perfect. If you mess up, you will not have the defensives you need when you need them. Like you will fall behind a lot, and that is very bad. So the first splice goes out. All I'm pressing is renewing blaze. Okay. One quick tip: disc priests should always just stand in the middle on this boss, and the group should rotate around the room. This will minimize how many orbs the disc priest has to move and dodge, right? So the disc priest can just stand in the middle and heal the whole time with reduced movement, right? So I renewing blaze the splice. Splice happens into a big hit, right? So splice, big hit, splice, big hit, splice, big hit. Renewing blaze the first splice. The first big hit, no matter what it is, rescue. And I rescue the shaman in our group every single time it's up. So renew the splice, rescue the first big mechanic, right? Plus 18, I live, okay? So very, very easy. Now, The second splice sequence, so again, it's going to be splice into big hit, is going to be obsidian scales, okay? So the obsidian scales is going to cover the entire splice debuff, and it's going to cover the big hit. So here it was splice into tremor slam. Obsidian scales still has 4 seconds left, right? So it's pretty comfy window, okay? The next event that happens is we're just dodging orbs, and then it's going to be the tank mechanic, so you get a bit of a break, right? And that's why these windows are so precise. So if you mess up, it's going to hurt you in the long run. Okay, so tank mechanic happens. Now we're reset back to the start, and you just rotate this the entire fight. This is literally how you live the whole fight. It is scripted. You do this over and over, and you win, okay? This is going to reduce the amount of incoming damage on you yourself a ton. And this is like the comfiest way I found. Now with your Zephyr doesn't work on the Umbral Weave. So if you see a Tremor Slam, you can press Zephyr on that as well. Obviously, there's a lot of options for it. You might have to press it for your teammates, right? If it's called in comms or, you know. But you yourself should be safe every single time, no matter what, if you follow this rotation. Now, what I learned today is this rotation is perfect, literally perfect, if you enter the boss with every button available, right? Meaning, okay, I pull the boss, I have my rescue off cooldown, renew off cooldown, and I have both obsidian scale charges, right? When I pulled this boss, I had one obsidian scale charge, and the other one was like only 30% of the way through its cooldown. And I didn't clue into that. I made it 4 minutes and like 15 seconds into the boss fight before that bit me in the butt. So I almost got away with it. But when it mattered the most, our rotation got messed up, and then we ended up losing this key at like 17%. So we lose a world first key because, honestly, because of my defensive play. And that sucks, right? But we learned something, and nobody else was aware of that. I wasn't aware of it, you know, focused on other things. Wasn't something we had planned for or thought of. But again, this is where we have these scripts, right? And because I had to press more on the previous mob, and I still ended up dying on the previous mob, right? Because these last 2 mobs in the key are hard. The script might not end up working how you want it to, based off what you needed to press on the previous pull, right? Because if people die on the previous pull and you're pugged, you might have to send an extra defensive to keep living and finish the pull, or, you know, stuff like that, right? But so just be aware of that. So again, the cycle reset here. So I renewing blaze the splice, and I'm just hovering, dodging the orbs. Hover up time on this boss, very important. The Umbral Weave comes out, I rescue. So this was the renewing blaze rescue set. Very, very easy. With the rescue, if you're playing with Enhanced Shaman, make sure you rescue the Enhanced Shaman, right? Because it's always dodge balls, right? So you're moving away, but then rescue him back into like close proximity of the boss once all the orbs have moved. The reason why is you want the Shaman to be able to spread his Flame Shock off the boss onto the Umbral Weave so that he could P-Wave Tempest them and just delete them. If he can't spread his Flame Shock, it's more globals for him, and then they might live longer, and then it starts to get sketchy. Yeah. Pretty chill boss with that rotation. So we're back to the Renewing Blaze one, right? Renewing Blaze. Feeling pretty good, pretty comfy. Gets a little sketchy. I always Vern embrace myself before the big hits too, just to make sure I'm topped. Rescue the Shaman in. Right? And then the next one is going to be a Obsidian Scale on the Splice, and that scale charge will last for the big hit. Right? So you're very cozy. If you follow this rotation and your healer meets the HPS check, you're chilling on this fight. I send out a Zephyr there. I shouldn't have. I should not have Zephyred. See, this is where things got hairy. I didn't pay attention to my scale charges at the start of the key, or at the start of the boss, right? So we are almost 3 minutes into the boss fight, and now it is going to bite me in the butt, right? And because I sent Zephyr on the slam, I double used on that, right? Now not only is the scripted rotation messed up, but now I don't even have a Zephyr to bail me out. So this is where the fight starts to kind of go downhill. But again, if, like I promise you guys, if you just memorize this and you follow this, like, living this boss will be so easy for you. Again, your healer has to meet the healing requirement. Like, this doesn't make you immortal because you still need full health. You need your health bar to go up, but this will help you a ton. You can Breath of Eons out of the Umbral Weave too if you want, if it lines up that way. I wouldn't focus on holding it for that, because again, Shaman kind of just deletes it, and you want to get as much damage as you can into the boss. But yeah, see, here's where I die. I called the payments up pretty late. We also lost Spell Ward because the freedom was missed on our healer, so then we Spell Warded the healer, and then I was short of defensive, and then, like, you know how it's like everything kind of just compounded and disaster struck, and yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking. But all of that was a result of me not having the proper walls I needed and recognizing that going into the boss. I don't need them all to go into, I don't need to have them both at the start of the pull. I just need to be aware of it, right? Because like I said, I go 3 minutes of that rotation with it working. And if we were more aware of the situation earlier, we could have planned for it ahead. I could have just got Spell Ward to fill my hole there, and then we would have been back on track with, you know, the rotation, and things would have been fine. But yeah, honestly, sad frog face, this is good. If you guys just follow these rotations on these boss fights, you should have a very easy time living. I hope this helps a lot. I hope you guys like this style. But again, just any feedback, good or bad feedback, you know, I'm open to it all. Leave it down in the comments. Let me know if this stuff worked. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you want more of this sort of defensive stuff. But seriously, I hope this helps in your high keys, because, you know, if I can live 18 with these defensive rotations, you guys hopefully can take that knowledge and have an easier time living whatever key level you may be at. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm really glad you guys like these. I love doing them. I love spreading the knowledge about Augmentation and all that stuff from the keys. And yeah, just let me know what you want to see next, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Love you. Bye.